chopped and screwed, R.I.P. to Pimp C. You think I was from Texas, but I come from Tennessee. We party all night and we on the Hennessy. I want a Cardi B, but I'll settle for a Hennessy. Like my brother from the Ville, I'm real tipsy. I'm with the gang, we just hopped out the limousine. We bar crawling like a centipede, and we getting lit, kerosene. Party all night, we got all the juice. I took a couple shots, now my screws loose. And it's a 90s party, we gon' raise the roof. Tell all the bad girls to come to the booth. Party all night, we got all the juice. I took a couple shots, now my screws loose. And it's a 90s party, we gon' raise the roof. Tell all the bad girls to come to the booth. We gon' party like it's 99. And I'm with all the slimes like Nick, and we lit like Dick. And I'm looking real slick, all black with the fit, wearing Coogee like I'm big. Puma down to the kicks, bust down on the wrist.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Dog Waters, and I'm back with more of my personal stories. Again, the reason why I'm telling these, many of you heard some of these, but especially if you listen to the interviews that I do on various podcasts, you've heard a lot of these stories. But new people haven't heard this, and I want to give them a foundation of understanding of what has transpired since I've been Dog Wars. Also, sidebar note, starting next week, we're going to go into more about giants. We're going to go into King Og and the 100,000 Giant War. There's some more content coming out tomorrow. I think the mermaid story should be available tomorrow. All Hell is Breaking Loose is available on the website now. There's another Dogman encounter that should be available tomorrow. That'll probably be here on YouTube. Then we'll have a couple of more stories that'll only be available on the website for you guys, and we'll go from there. What's up, brother? I'm in here trying to take care of some business. What's up with you? That's all you can ask for, baby. Enjoy your 4th of July. I won't. So I'm going to go into some more of my personal stories, but also there's a lot more content coming out right now for you guys. It's going to be on both ends of the spectrum. I decided I'm getting ready to start dumping. I'm getting to the point where I got too much content because I still have last year's content that I need to produce and get out of my head. And then I got these phone calls coming in with new content. Great conversation with a gentleman who gave me his whole life story. Had Bigfoot encounters, Dogman encounters, all kind of stuff. He just didn't know what it was he was encountering until he and I had a conversation. I'm going to do an interview with him. But anyway, back to my personal story. So a lot of this stuff centered around 2706 Robert Street, which is the house that I showed you guys on Facebook. And so it centered around that house being a training ground for spiritual warfare for me. For example, and this is why I told Wolf when he was having his beef, which for the record, I stepped out of there. I tried to get the two of them to talk. It don't look like they're going to do it. So I'm done with it. You know what I'm saying? But the reason why I told Wolf to pray is because there's a lot that happens when you're under that spiritual attack from witches and people throwing hexes, the emotional attack from reading people's stupid comments, which is why you guys know I just ban and block people and keep it moving. And it starts to become physical. So while I was in the midst of dealing with all those attacks provoked by King Retard over there, I wake up one night and I wake up one morning and I'm making the bed and I see there's a spot of blood in the bed. And I'm like, what the fuck is this blood from, right? That morning I go take a piss and I'm pissing blood, like real deal pissing blood. And I'm like, what the fuck? Now, prior to this, I've been going to my doctor's appointments, getting blood work, doing all this other stuff. And they hadn't found anything crazy going on with my body. So there was no reason for me to be like literally pissing blood. I go drink some more water, like fill my bladder up with water, pee again, and it's gone. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit about? And I ended up going to talk to Sally Ann Glassman. I think we were talking about because it was hard to get those prayer candles back in the day. You just couldn't. The manufacturer out of Texas who made them, and like the distributor wouldn't do a deal with me, right? So I had to go get them secondhand from other people. So I'm going to get my prayer candles and all the rest of the stuff. And we just sitting there talking, and her dog starts barking, like not aggressive bark, but it just barks at me like woof, woof, woof. And she says, "Well, someone is hexing you," and and I'm like, "Well, what do you mean someone's hexing me?" She's like, "Someone's hexing you. When he barks 3 times like that, that person's being hexed." And I'm like, "Well, okay. Well, what do I do about that?" And she says, "The most important thing is that you know what's going on. Once you know what's going on, you defend yourself." And I was like, "Well, how do I defend myself?" Again, Sally Ann Glassman is a hoodoo voodoo practitioner. And she says, "James, you're a Christian. You need to pray." So I go home, sit on the porch, light a cigar. My friend Corey comes in town to visit his kid, and he and I are just hanging out, blah blah blah. We go through the Psalms of the Bible together, do some prayer work, and it stops. About 2 weeks after that happened is when I get the call from the lady who had the Prince of Hell come into her bedroom with her and her daughter. If you guys don't remember, I did a story about this lady who was in the bedroom with her daughter, and they're both laying in the bed, and she sees this thing crawling up on the bed. Looks like freaking a skeleton, like emaciated, pale skin, hands but with extra long fingers, head flipped upside down, mouth wide open, eyes at the bottom, and it starts reaching for her daughter, and she's like physically kicking it in the face, trying to get rid of it, like kicking it, bam, kicking it, bam, kicking it, trying to get it away from her kid. And she fights it off, kicking it, kicking it, kicking it. Then she calls upon Jesus, and it goes away. Well, she tells me that story, breaks down crying in the process of telling me the story. The Spirit of God tells me to get off the phone with the lady because there's more to it than I know. I get off, but later on I start telling that story. And as I'm telling it on an interview, live on an interview, sitting in that little prayer room, because back then I didn't really understand. Like, I thought that, you kept your work confined to one space, and it kept that negativity confined to one space. And in that space where I did my work, I kept my altar, which had an open Bible and my prayer candles. And, I was doing live streams at that point in time. And many of you guys were on this live stream when this happened. I'm talking and I'm telling that story on a live stream. Or was it an interview? It might have been an interview. It happened. No. Wait, let me not lie to you. This part happened on an interview. The second part happened on a live stream. So let's talk about the live stream. So I'm on a live stream and I'm talking back and forth, going, telling you guys what's up, bada bing, bada boom. And the knobs on Audacity just start moving up and down, like the volume knobs, the everything. Like, if you use Audacity, there's this little slide bar where you slide the microphone volume up, microphone volume down, volume up, volume down. All these bars are just moving while I'm talking. Like, they're just literally moving in front of me. But my hands are like they are now. When I tell stories, I move my hands and I act out what I'm saying so you can get the intention of what I'm saying. So like right now, I'm sitting here moving my hands. My hands are nowhere near the mouse, nowhere near the keyboard. I just hit record and go. Well, shit's moving, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. So while shit's moving back and forth on the screen, you hear this tapping on the window, and I start to kind of get freaked out. That night, I end up getting off the live stream, and I come back later and do a live stream. That second live stream, I'm doing it, boom, boom, boom. My stomach starts hurting. I'm like belching and shit. I'm feeling like I'm sick and having a heart attack. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, I don't understand what's going on. That night, I end up going to bed, and I used to sleep with the blinds open because the way the sun rose, the sun would wake me up. And the house was elevated, so there was a basement, which was some jackass was in the comments. I was reading some jackass talking about there's no basements in New Orleans. Jackass, we have raised houses in New Orleans. So we got a first floor house that's raised up. We got a second story of the house, which is a duplex, and a third story. To me, that's the closest thing to a basement I know. So anyway, the house is raised, therefore the sunlight shines in the windows relatively easily. And I used to sleep with the blinds open. That way, I didn't wake up to an alarm clock. I woke up to the sun shining on my face, and it woke me up. Well, I go to bed. My blinds are normally open like they always are, and I start having like these nightmares, crazy dreams, um, like stuff moving around in the house, like entities in the house or whatever. And in a dream, I'm taking control of the dream, and I'm walking through the house, and I'm telling them, "Look, all y'all need to be going. Get the hell out of here." And I'm literally opening the door and like walking them out, like putting my hand on their back and pushing them out, like y'all don't belong here. Y'all fucking need to go. Y'all need to go. And in a dream, they had closed all the blinds in the house because they wanted pure darkness in the house. So every blind in the house was closed. Well, I wake up the next morning, every blind in the house is closed, including the blinds in the bedroom, including the blinds in my kids' room, living room, kitchen, or living room, like den, kitchen, and then the little recording room that I had. Everything is closed. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy, right? I continue to do what I do. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm going through this process where I'm experiencing all these things. And the one common thread is if I'm afraid of it, it gets worse. So I'm just being as bold as I can. And now I'm on, God, what was the podcast? Brainiacs Paranormal Podcast. It's something to do with a brain, right? And I'm telling a story about the lady in her encounter um, with that upside headed demon, right? And as I'm telling the story, water starts to drip on my forearm, like drop, drop, drop. But understand, the room where I recorded, like I'm getting chills telling this right now because that thing was badass. But you need to go on about your business right now because I ain't got time to be playing with you. But anyway, drop, drop, drop on my forearm. And I'm like, again, you guys got to realize, I'm not, when I tell my stories and when I'm interviewing, I am nowhere near a keyboard. I'm not touching anything. I'm sitting in a chair for the most part, unless it's a big interview, then I stand up and I move around and I talk. But I'm sitting in the chair just moving my arms back and forth. And these drops are hitting me as I move. So imagine you move your arm forward, drop. Move your arm back, drop. Move your arm down and to the right, drop. So it's targeting, this is targeting me as I'm moving. And I'm paused in the middle of it and I'm like, yo, this shit is crazy. Like, it's water leaking in here. It's like, and so now I'm looking around. I look at the ceiling. There's no water spots on the ceiling. This room was off the kitchen. The refrigerator was on the wall of where my back was. On the opposite side of the wall where my back was the refrigerator. To the left of that refrigerator, and then on a 90-degree perpendicular angle was the sink. Moving around was the door to the basement. Then coming back around was the stove. There was no fucking way that water should have been dropping anywhere. There was nowhere for water to come from. Period. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, holy hell. I'm walking around the house looking. And when I say it's drop, I mean, I can physically rub it on my skin. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is crazy. Freaks me out. I got to take a couple of days from doing anything. You know what I'm saying? I finished that interview and, pretty much freaked out. Well, as soon as, and if I'm not mistaken, the interview was live streaming too. It was live streaming because they were on screen. Well, as I'm telling the story, unbeknownst to me, they're all in the studio. People are getting shoved, scratched. They're seeing shadows. All kind of stuff is going on. Then, people in the audience, because you got to remember, I get off and I'm freaked the fuck out. They kept going. Then people in the audience calling in, man, I saw shadows. I saw this. I saw that. And I'm like, man, this is crazy. And I'm discovering all of this the next day. Like literally not the same simultaneously while everything is happening to them and the drops are happening to me. I discovered the next day that all this shit went on. And I'm like, yo, this is fucking crazy. Y'all, I thought that the people were kind of like playing it up for views. You know what I'm saying? Because it would be a gangster thing to play up for views. Like, yo, we had Dark Waters on and crazy shit start happening. Don't have him on. It's scary, blah, 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 blah. I thought they was fucking playing. Then I started talking to them. They're like, nah, we not joking, dog. Like, for real, shit started happening. And then people in our house, people that were listening to us in their houses, started having shit happen. I'm like, oh hell no! I got to be more careful what I'm doing, because that back then I didn't really understand that entities get power as you talk about them. So the more you reveal about them, the more you talk about them, they gain power and influence. So I didn't know though. I mean, I had no understanding of that concept at that point in time. That's when you guys saw me institute the prayer into the Dark Waters family, because you had people throwing hexes, you had people throwing come to me spells, which were spells that would try and make me talk to them, and continue to talk to them. You had all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And I'm sitting there saying, you know, God, I ain't signed up for all this. I needed some extra scratch. I got the skills to tell a story. I got the business skills, but man, this is a whole bunch for me to be dealing with. This ain't worth. And at that point in time, I think this is right before I launched iam.waters.com. In that time period before I decided to launch it, I'm like, yo, this shit ain't even making no scratch. You know what I'm saying? It's making a little bit of money. I'm dealing with all this foolishness, all this bullshit, bada bing, bada boom. So I'm drove, needless to say, like drove up a wall, like, and it all is stemming from this conflict with this jackass. And so, well, not all. That's unfair. The hexes, the come to me spells was stemming from the conflict with jackass. The other paranormal shit was stemming from, you know, talking to people. You know what I'm saying? So you had the perfect mesh of witches working on somebody's behalf doing dumb shit, and then you had just me out there walking around like a novice greenhorn talking to random fucking people with no protection. The beauty of it is, as time went by, I understood and I learned. It's kind of like staring into the darkness. When it stares back, you start grabbing it by the neck and holding it and looking it in the face. And unintentionally, that's what I was doing. I was literally holding the darkness by the back of the head, like staring in its eyes, not letting go. But with that being said, it taught me a lot. It taught me a whole lot about spiritual warfare, stuff that I talk to preachers on a daily basis. And when I tell them the stories of what I experienced, they cringe, because I smoke cigars with a lot of preachers. I mean, we talking about preachers with congregations of 1,000, 500, 250 people. They literally cringe when I tell them the things, because they know it. They know it's true. They know I'm not lying. They just don't encounter it. But anyway, so I'm in the midst of dealing with all this stuff, and I'm at the point where I'm like, yo, I'm about to stop fucking with this. This shit is crazy. I can go get some real estate money. Like, I could flip a house with this energy and make me like 70 racks. You know, it just don't make no damn sense. My partner Corey is there. This night we were sitting around drinking. He gets drunk as shit. And he was cleaning my gun. Fucks around, shoots the gun into the floor. And I'm like, yo, you need to fucking sit your ass down, dog. You know what I'm saying? This is when this conversation with me and him, I said, man, you need to sit your fucking ass down. Put the fucking gun down. Let's go out on the porch. Let's smoke some cigars. Let's chill and talk. And I'm telling him, like, yo, dog, I think I'm about to stop fucking with this shit. He was like, why? Like, you a beast. He's like, it's just a matter of time. You a beast. You know what I'm saying? Like, you already blew up. Just keep it moving. I'm like, man, this shit ain't making a scratch you need to make. To even dedicate the time, and they got all this paranormal bullshit going on. By the way, he had encounters and experiences in his house as well, sleeping on the sofa, something pulled him off the sofa, crazy stuff, right? I'm like, yo, I'm about to be done with this. He was like, you can't be done with it. And I was like, well, why you say that? He said, because God made you do this. It's like, what you mean? He's like, nah, God made you do this. He was like, James, I known you. He's like, you've been like a big brother to me for years. He's like, you are here alone in this house dealing with this shit because God wants you to be here. And he was like, God wants you to be in this situation, in this environment, and when he's done, he's gonna pull you out. He's not gonna let you quit. And I'm like, man, fuck that. He gonna let me quit. I'm not whatever, right? So I'm like, I ain't doing it no more. So I start taking time off from recording, and you guys noticed there was those time periods back in the day where I wasn't recording. It was just like I would do one thing, and then there'd be these long periods where there was absolutely no content. And we ain't talking about like 30 days. We talking about 30, 60 days. Because I'm trying not to do this shit, but people calling me. And what turned me back, and I think Corey's right, it was God, was this little girl calls me. She's about 10 years old. No, she was 9 years old. And she says, my mom gave me permission to call and talk to you. And I wanted to talk to you about the strange things that I've been experiencing. And I'm like, okay, what's up? She's like, well, when I go to bed at night, I see shadows. And the worst thing I've seen is I opened my eyes one night and there was this shadow with purple eyes like hovering over me. I told my parents, my mother believes me, my father doesn't. I don't know what to do. Her mom gets on the phone, and her mom is literally in tears, crying, and like, I'm trying to explain this to my husband. We need to move. We need to do this. And then the Spirit of God starts talking to me. Like, words come out of my mouth that are not my words, knowledge that I don't have. I know I don't have this knowledge. And I start saying things. And the first thing I say is, well, it's your husband who has to take charge of the household. Your husband has to fight this evil because he's head of household, and by God's divine law, your husband has to deal with it. Can I speak to your husband? So me and me and this woman's husband talked for an hour, and I'm telling him, I said, listen, I deal with the paranormal all the time. I said, I'm telling you things right now, brother, that is telling me to tell you. He's using my lips to tell these things to you. And I said, these are things that are coming to me as I speak. I haven't studied this. I said, you have an opportunity where God is speaking to you through me. And I said, I'm not trying to be arrogant. And I tell him, I'm not a good person. I've done a lot of bad things in my life. I said, but please, please listen to what I'm saying. And I explained to him that he has authority over his household as the man of his house, and that the weakness in his hedge of protection, which is allowing that evil to attack the innocence, which is his daughter, is because of his weakness, and that because he doesn't pray and he doesn't lead his household. Understand, guys, I don't know this to be true as I'm saying it. And he breaks down crying on the phone. And he says, man, God has to be speaking through you because I don't pray. I'm mad at God because God took my mother. And I've been mad at God for a long time. And I said, listen, bro, I don't know nothing about you. I don't know nothing about your history. I don't know nothing about your past. I said, all I know is that God does love you. He loves your family. And somehow your daughter talked to me. I said, out of all the phone calls that I take, all the phone calls I ignore, something made me pick up the phone for your daughter. I said, so please, please, please go and pray for your family. So that breaking curses prayer that I posted on the website and I prayed for you guys, I got that through one of the gentlemen who's an exorcist, swordofstmichaels.com or .org is their website. He died just recently. God rest his soul. Great guy, cool dude, down to earth brother. Well, I gave him that prayer. And I said, look, pray the prayer, break whatever's in your household, and we get off the phone. And I really think nothing of it. Like, I forget about the whole situation. Move on. Boom, 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 boom. I'm actually like knocking on doors trying to get houses because I'm trying to hit a lick, right? I need to scratch. I'm trying to hit a lick. So I'm literally knocking on doors, bada bing, bada boom, talking to people in foreclosure, putting contracts on houses. I'm away from the whole paranormal thing altogether. And then the little girl calls me back. It's been like about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And again, she calls at a very convenient time for me to answer the phone. I mean, extremely convenient. Like, all distractions had been moved. The phone is right there. It wasn't like I had to leave and go in another room. It was like it was meant for her to freaking call me, and it was meant for me to talk to her. And I answer the phone. Hey, this is Dark Waters. What's up? She's like, hey, Dark Waters completely sounds different. I mean, child sounds happy, ecstatic, like full of life, full of energy, vibrant. I just wanted to tell you that things have been going well. My dad wanted me to call you and put you on the phone. I talked to the dad. He's like, man, all this activity stopped after 3 days of praying. I just wanted to call you and thank you and tell you that during my prayers, God told me to tell you that you can't quit doing this, and he's going to reward you for doing it. Just do it. This guy goes on to tell me, now he doesn't know I'm doing any of these things. He goes on to tell me, stop knocking on people's doors and going after their houses because it's not going to work, because God doesn't want it to work. So you need to do what God's put you here to do. And I'm like, what the fuck? This shit is crazy. I keep knocking though, because I'm hard-headed, right? Knock, 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 knock. And nobody's buying. Nobody's literally trying to sell me their house. And I'm talking about, dude, I'm making offers. You're in foreclosure for $75,000. I'm offering you $135,000. Like, everybody else is like Everybody else's offers are seven. You in foreclosure for 75. They're offering you 90, and they're getting contracts. I'm making very great offers, and it's like there's this wall there where it won't work. My partner Corey comes back in town. We chopping it up, and I'm like, man, this shit not working. People doing boom, 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 and we sitting out on the porch smoking cigars. It's cold out that night, and like literally we sitting out there with blankets over our legs, just chopping it up. I think we might have been listening to I was listening to Alex Jones or somebody. Either Alex Jones, Cliff High, one of those cats. And I tell him about the series of phone calls and everything going on. He was like, dog, I already told you you ain't gonna be able to do nothing else right now. He was like, you gotta finish this work. He's like, you gotta put in this work and you gotta make it better. He's like, dog, trust me, just put in the work. I prayed for you, and that's the same thing God told me. You gotta put in this work. And I'm like, bruh, this is foul. He's like, dog, you gotta put in this work. And he was like, I'm gonna tell you something else fucked up. He said, God gonna separate me and you because you gonna have to put in this work. And I'm like, nah, that's not cool. You like my little brother, bada bing, bada boom. Sure enough, we end up getting separated. And when we ended up being separated, I was like, yo, this is crazy. He told me this was gonna happen. So, um, it's been an adventure for me to do this. So when you hear me praying, um, for you guys, or when I talk to people who call and I tell them, hey man, you need to do this prayer, or when people call me and they say I want you to pray for me, and I tell you guys, nah, I can't pray right now, I need to go cleanse myself and literally repent for the things I've been doing before I even try and walk up to God and ask him to help you. I got to get myself together, and sometimes it takes a while for me to get myself together because there's a lot going on. And then we pray together and think things changes for that person. But it's been an adventure. So when you're listening to the Dark Waters channel, you're not listening to creepy pasta. I say this all the time. Don't get me wrong. Creepy pasta is cool. A lot of those guys are great at what they do. They use the word "I" way too much, which screws up their stories. If they just master storytelling, the stories will be 1,000% better. But they got to do what they got to do. But you're listening to real content, real stories from real people who've had foul stuff happen to them. And the reason why it's so powerful is because you are living that experience with them. You are literally walking through it with them. And if you're smart, you're picking up the lessons that I'm picking up from their life. You know, it's one thing to learn from your mistakes, but it's a whole nother story. It's a genius level of understanding to learn from other people's mistakes. And that's why I add every part of the story in. Just like when you guys saw Blue and you saw Blue's encounter, everybody else focused on just Dogman. The Dogman running across the screen. You can find that image, that video of the Dogman running across the screen everywhere. You may find that plus about 6 minutes of what he went through. You won't find the whole footage of everything because we focus on the entity. We focus on the Dogman, the Bigfoot, the red-eyed kids, black-eyed kids, red-eyed kids. We focus on the entity and not the person. The person is the reason why the entity is there. And it's the lessons that you learn from the person. My Bible said that God says that God chastens those that he loves and causes them to come into affliction. And I may have said this before. I may have said this to somebody else on the phone. I may have said this on the phone. May have never said it to the entire audience. But you have to understand there's more than one form of affliction. There's physical affliction. There's emotional affliction. And then there's paranormal affliction, i.e. you see things that are supernatural. It is a form of affliction. And so it's not designed to scare you. It's actually designed to run you closer to God. Now, most people, it runs them to God. Other people, they run towards it. They worship it. They like, ooh, I'm so fascinated by it. But that's not the purpose. The purpose of all these things is to serve him. And I'm not preaching at you. I'm just teaching. I'm just telling you, not even teaching. I'm telling you what I've learned since I've been doing this. And I'm hoping that by me explaining to you what I've learned, you'll understand or have greater understanding than you currently do. And I'm pretty sure there's people out there who have better understanding than me. And I welcome you to talk to me. I welcome you to comment. I welcome you to share your information with me. For me, YouTube is not just a YouTube channel. To me, it's a paranormal intelligence network. I mean, it's literally, and that's how I treat it. Like, I gain information from talking to people. I learn from talking to the guy who sells cars on his has a car lot full of cars, or a property full of cars, and he's selling carburetors and alternators and O2 sensors. I learned from holding that conversation with him. I would, under normal circumstances, I would never know any of that knowledge because I wouldn't have access to that person. I learned from talking to the person who's been a pagan their whole life, and their viewpoints on the world and their insight into human nature and people. I actually learn a lot from these conversations. So um, I learned from you, you learned from me. And that's why I call it the Dark Waters family. It's not a one-way street, and that's why there's always two-way communication where you can reach out to me and talk to me. You know what I'm saying? That's why if you notice in the comments, I be spazzing on people. But if I spaz out and I'm wrong, I'll be like, yo, I apologize. I was completely out of line. B, I took that shit the wrong way. And people be like, nah, no problem. You know, it came across the wrong way. Because I'm learning. I'm growing. And my goal is for us to learn and grow together. Um, and with that being said, I want to tell you guys I love you. Happy 4th of July weekend. Let's celebrate the Independence Day of this nation. Um, we live in a great nation full of great people. It's being divided by the media. It's being divided by a bunch of forces who want to take it over. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. I think they underestimate the badassness of the American people. You can divide people by race and gender and all the rest of that stuff, but when the rubber starts to meet the road, um, people will have a greater understanding of what's being done to them. And as they understand what's being done, they will turn around, look at that pyramid of power, and they're going to fuck the top of that pyramid up. I'm telling you, they're going to fuck it up because it's nothing but a few people out here who dictate and try and control our lives and make decisions for us, instill fear in our hearts and our spirits and our souls. And God is there with us. And I know in the Bible says there'll be great tribulations and there'll be great trials and there'll be great everything. And it is what it is. That's what, we can't change God's will. Well, I think we can if we pray enough. He can give us a reprieve. But if it's going to come that route and it's going to go to that route, it's going to go that route. But I can tell you one thing. We ain't just going out like no suckers hiding in a corner. You understand what I'm saying? Anyway, it's your boy Dark Waters, and I'm out. Peace.